So, I have read 2 more books to close with.
Yay! Now, someone we've never heard of before on this podcast.
Absolutely.
Not once.
I could do the other book first, and that would be accurate, but I'll do this one. So I've read
Wilkie
Collins, Dickens' Deputy, The Old Faithful. And this book, it doesn't look... It's a fantastic book, by the way. It doesn't look appealing. It's almost 700 pages, or 650 anyway, and it's just called Man and Wife. This looks like the most boring book you could possibly read.
Yeah.
It's actually fantastic.
So it's not Mill and the Floss.
It is not the Mill and the Floss, but it does use a little bit of the Anna Karenina method. But I'll give it its... it uses a little bit of the Anna Karenina method because it drags on a little bit, to be honest. So, let me start. This book is about 2 marriages, essentially. So, it opens with a preface, then a prologue, then the book. So, in the preface... Wilkie Collins writes to us.
How long are these?
Is
the preface 50 pages?
Yeah, I think. The preface is 1 page, the prologue is 50, I think.
Is it necessary?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Is the rest of the book necessary? That's the question.
Oh.
So, the preface is 1 page where Wilkie Collins says, this is a social commentary. This work is important. This is about the marriage laws, horrible problems that existed in the marriage laws, and that needed to be addressed by Parliament, basically. And this is really important, and you'll see why as we go on. I did look it up just in case this book was actually like inspirational and led to things being fixed, but it did not.
Oh, that's sad.
But it brought social awareness to problems, I guess. So we open with the prologue, and basically there are 2 ladies, Anna and Blanche, okay? And they're like super good, really good friends, love each other, hugs and kisses, like just all over each other, absolutely love it. Best friends.
This is a great cover, I will say.
The cover's dramatic and cool.
Yes.
The title is not. One of them gets married. So I'm just going to cover the prologue, okay? There's been an Irish marriage. So they got married in Ireland. The law there states that she would have had to convert to Catholicism in order to marry her Catholic husband. She does do that. But apparently you have to convert for a full year before you marry. And she did not do that. Which means the marriage is technically null and void. But she does not know. She's a really nice person, but she's a bit older than her husband, and she's a bit boring, is the vibe. The husband's like, cool, I'm off with lady such and such, she's going to be more advancing my career than you are, so I don't care about my wife anymore.
Aww.
So he brings his friend round, and is like, you're my friend, I basically hate my wife. And the friend's like, right, your wife is really fantastic, and we're no longer friends because you're a terrible person.
Oh, very nice.
So then he brings the lawyer around, and the lawyer is like, right.
Now we have lady in the law.
Yeah, I don't necessarily like to deliver this news, but your marriage is null and void, essentially. And he's like, right, cool, so I can go off like with this other, this other woman or whatever. Then the other woman visits the house, and the wife is there, and he's been already carrying on a relationship with her, and she thought he was single, and she's like, well, who's this other woman in your house? And she's like, oh, yeah, this is just like this friend that lives here. And she's like, I am your wife. And he uses this moment to be like, actually, you're not. And the lawyer is like, yeah, that is true, but didn't mean to be an ass about it. Like, you pick the worst possible way to do it, inviting another woman around and everything. So, I don't like the guy already. Like, a really terrible way to do it. But he keeps saying this other girl's richer, she's going to advance me in Parliament, she's a lady, all this kind of stuff, and that's all he cares about. Part 2 of the prologue, we see his comeuppance. Like, he goes to Parliament, has a terrible career, no one ever cares about him. The lawyer becomes a successful, becomes a lord and everything, and has a really, really good career out of it.
So she marries him.
No, but what happens is the poor girl just faints. And the husband's like, well, cool, I'm off with my mistress, so bye-bye, I don't really care about you. Just leaves. And the lawyer's there like, this is outside of my skill set. I don't know what to do with this fainted woman. I'm just going to kind of stand here awkwardly and look at her, but not help her, but also not leave. And then the friend comes in, And it's like, oh my god, my beloved, I find you left like this after all this time. I think she'd gone to India with the East India Company to like do some colonialism, and now she's come back.
I don't know if I can contribute. What is it? I don't know if I can dedicate myself full time to your colonialism.
Yes, Father Ted reference.
That's what I'm trying to say.
And she's like, "Oh my god, I've just come back to you lying on the floor." And then like they die, and they're like, "Look, we're gonna name our kids after each other, and they're gonna be best friends just like us. But please look after her because I'm dying from miscellaneous."
Aww.
And off we go. So all of this is just the prologue. Like this is an entire story told in like 50 pages. This what I would have done if I was Wilkie Collins is I would have released 2 novellas. This, and then a similar length for the Scottish law. But that one is 600 pages, and it really doesn't need to be. But anyway, that so far everything we've covered is the prologue. The real book will be the daughters, Anna and Blanche, the second, and the sons of the lawyer.
Okay.
The main guy, he's gone. He's irrelevant. He has a failed parliamentary career, and we never see him again. But it is bad that he's so uncaring about his wife. So this is trying to point out that the Irish marriage laws are, a little bit problematic, potentially. But we're now going to move on to the Scottish marriage laws, which are insane.
Oh, lovely.
So you can get married to someone simply by saying that you're married to them, with no ceremony at all.
Okay.
And that happens and causes problems. You don't even need a witness. A witness would just be useful to prove that you'd said it. But in theory, you can just say, we're married now, and that's it.
Until you do not want to be married anymore.
Then it would have to go to court and get a divorce, and getting unmarried is very, very, very difficult.
Are you sure? Or can you just say, oh, I never said that?
If no one witnessed it, then you could, but then one of them, you'd have to both agree.
Oh.
Obviously, if the other person said, oh, we actually are married, then it doesn't work at all,
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
So this is a little bit complicated, but basically we have the 2 girls. So Blanche is the daughter. She's there living with her aunt, Lady Lundy, who's very authoritarian and shocked about everything.
Waiting for you to say Londonderry.
They're all we do have something Londonderry tea. Their old head of the family, Sir Patrick, who's relatively a good guy, to be honest. And they're having a big party. A bunch of people are playing croquet or whatever people do, but Anne Sylvester is living with them as a kind of governess, and the even though they're best friends and everything, the aunt always kind of looks down on her and is suspicious of her. And there's also a woman who works there. She's the cook, and she can't speak, so she can hear, but she can't speak, so she writes on a slate. She becomes relevant near the end, but the Lady Lundy also doesn't like her and keeps looking for reasons to sack her, just because she's different in that she can't speak. She's done nothing wrong. She's a really good cook. She asks for days off occasionally. He's like, these servants nowadays, they want a day off once a month, and they So the end is kind of horrible, to be honest.
Who's going to draw the bath? Honestly.
Yeah. So there's 2 relationships here. Blanche is going to marry Arnold, and I think that's all fine. Anne is going to marry one of the sons of the lawyer from the prologue.
Okay.
He has 2 sons. One is not that important. It's just like, I'm going to be the heir. I'm, do everything that Dad wants. Everything is good. The other one is like, I don't care about work or business or smarts. I'm a big muscle guy, and I'm going to do sports and activities. And he's enters a marathon thing. He's going to run, and they
Sure.
This book several times tells us it is dangerous to be too fit. One of the big things in this book is he's going to be running too much, he's going to push himself, he's going to weaken his heart, and in the end he does, and he loses the race, and he's done, like an old horse, take him out and shoot him, he's been overworked. And they talk about this a lot in the book, don't be too fit. I know Wilkie Collins just didn't want to exercise, but
I learned from Animal Farm that you cannot do this.
Yeah. So that's kind of an ongoing theme in the book. So Anne says to this guy, well, you should promise to marry me. we've been together for a while, but you don't answer my letters, you don't come and visit me. So the guy's already not doing a good job of courting her. I guess it's assumed that, because she could just say, well, forget about it then. I'm assuming he slept with her and she's worried about being compromised. So she's like, we have to get married, and she really pushes him. And to be fair, he seems really uninterested. And she's like, you promised, we have to get married, otherwise I'm ruined, we have to get married. I found a way to do it. I've investigated the law here, and if we go to an inn, which by the way is like 2 miles away, but it's like the other side of the world for these people.
Yeah, of course.
If we go to the inn, I'll arrive first, and I'll say I'm waiting for my husband. When you arrive and say, is my wife here? Then by Scottish law we're married. A witness will have heard us both refer to each other as husband and wife. And that's all we need to do. And he's like, okay, I guess I can do that. But we don't tell anyone about it. And he's not a good guy, really. So then, his dad might die.
Okay.
And he's estranged from his dad because he was not the good son. He's like, well, if I go to him on his deathbed, I might get back in the will. So he doesn't go to her at the inn. Oh. And he says to his friend, who's going to marry the other girl, okay, I need you to go to the inn for me and tell her I can't make it. But because she said she's waiting on her husband to arrive, and he arrived and undercover, not knowing the law, said, I'm here for my wife, so as not to cause a scandal by being a random man, they are now accidentally married.
Hijinks!
Yes. So they are now accidentally married. One thing that I thought would happen that doesn't, I thought the two girls would like hate each other now. Because she's like, you married my fiancé. That does not happen. She's very understanding. She's like, oh my god, this is terrible. I'm so sorry for you that you accidentally married my fiancé.
I'm very glad that didn't cause any strife.
Yeah.
Because that is so overdone in today's media. So
the only problem with this book is, to the reader, you can see where it's going. And then it takes like 300 pages for the characters to figure it out.
Of course.
So it's really slow, but we already know what's happened. And it's like, oh, well, now one by one, we got to watch all the characters figure it out. And it kind of is like,
200 pages though?
Cut a bit out of this. You know, like, this is really using the Anna Karenina method here. This book could be cut in half for sure. It's really good. It's just a bit long. So they discover that they're married and they can't do anything about it. Now they try to get like Sir Patrick, who is an old lawyer, to help, and he's like, I'm in two minds about it. You might be, you might not be. It's going to have to go to court. They employ two other lawyers, who of course one says you're married and one says you're not. There's no intention there. And all this kind of stuff. So they argue about it. It might potentially have to go to court, but they don't want to go to court because that could cause another scandal in this rich aristocratic family. So a lot of this is just to like avoid public opinion and scandals and everything, and making things much more difficult than they need to be. The funny thing is, the entire book is unnecessary because the dying lawyer says, I really feel bad about all that stuff that happened in the prologue years ago in my life. And he tells his sons, he tells the other son, the good son, if you ever see Anne Sylvester, I want you to look after her, do something good for her, because we really were not good to her mum.
That's sweet.
But at the same time, his other son is actually trying to marry her, but thinks his dad won't approve because she's not a good social standing. So that's why all these hijinks happen. So if they would just have open dialogue, none of the book would have occurred, and he'd be like, cool, my dad actually supports the marriage, and it's all fine. But instead, they end up marrying the wrong person, and all this kind of hijinks happens. And it's ridiculous, He's trying to get back into the dad's good books, and the son is like, well, we're going to give you one more chance. Dad says that if you marry someone, then he'll let you back into the will. So now they try to set him up with some widow, and the widow falls madly in love with him for some reason. And he's like, cool, well, the one I was meant to marry is accidentally married to my friend, so I guess I'm just going to go off with this widow and leave them to it. And then deny that I knew anything about it, or that I was ever engaged to her in the first place, and just ruin their lives. Cool. So he is really not a good guy. He also doesn't treat the widow well. He's like, no one should see us together, and he's just a terrible guy, all around. He just wants to progress his career and get some money out of people and things, and win his race.
We'll take him out of the will.
Yeah. So more scandals kind of happen, with the families. It's a lot of well, we can't talk about this. Everything's very hush hush. Do you know what's really, really sad? Anne's in a position now where, to save her reputation, she has to prove she was married. She has to prove it was intention.
Okay.
She has to prove she didn't mean to marry the guy she married to get that null and void. To then say, you promised to marry me, so now you must marry me. Because if you don't, my reputation is ruined. But the guy's terrible to her, and even threatens to like beat her if they get married. And she still has to be like, the only way I can save my reputation is to marry you anyway.
Wow.
Even though he wants to marry someone else. So the situation is ridiculous. And it's so sad for her, because she's like, well, I guess my life is resigned to forcing this man who hates me to marry me, and I'm ruining his prospects by doing so. But it's the only way to save my reputation, because we live in a ridiculous society.
Yeah.
Victorians
It's a silly place.
cause a lot of problems for themselves. They really did.
Yeah, it could have just been like, yeah, we didn't get married, and then no one would think anything otherwise.
Yeah. Like, in this book today, we need one sentence. It's like, oh, yeah, these guys did it, and then they didn't get married. At the end. Like, it's fine, you know?
If it came out today, the prologue would happen still, probably.
Yeah, potentially.
It's a short story.
So then the friend, of course, turns on him because he's like, you pretended you didn't know anything about this, and you forced me to marry this girl I didn't want to marry, knowing that I love the other one. And then he goes to the inn to see the one he was meant to marry, but in like disguise, and doesn't tell her. All this weird stuff. There's like lots of needless hijinks kind of happen.
Right. 2 questions then for you.
Okay.
When you were reading this, did the Benny Hill theme go to your head the entire time?
It did not.
Should have.
No yakety sax.
Second question. What do you think? Yeah. Down the gutter.
I loved it. It was a bit too long, but I really loved it. Something else that happens is they eventually make the marriage happen.
Okay.
And then he's living with her. He doesn't beat her, but he comes back
Good.
to the cook. He then employs the cook after she gets sacked, the one who writes on the slate. Discovers that she killed someone in the past, uses that as blackmail to make her kill his wife. And then, like, Sir Patrick has to come and try to save her, and, like, more melodrama happen, but really for no reason. It's like, well, we're going to kill my wife then. And the wife is really suspicious. Like, why are you being nice to me suddenly? I know you hate me. You were going to beat me. This is weird. But he keeps her locked up. He's like, I haven't done anything wrong. She's fed, and, you know, but every time she wants to do something, he's like, we probably won't go see your family today. You know, all this kind of stuff. So she's like, I'm a prisoner.
Original gaslighter.
Yeah.
You know, we probably shouldn't see your family. I hear they don't like us.
Yeah, it's a lot of that. And the family come anyway, and they're like, we are seeing her, we are worried about her, you know. Not Lady Lundy, she's besmirched because things didn't go her way, so she doesn't care. But Sir Patrick is actually a good guy. It's like, I'm going to fix this. He says a couple of dodgy things about women during the book, but he's like, so imagine you go to the shop and buy a wife. She's going to be painted with her pretty colours and her hair dyes, but you need to know that that's not real and that the woman, it's a trick, and, you know. But in general, apart from that, he's he tries to do the right thing, mostly. I don't want to say like how it ends, but yeah, there's lots of like needless melodrama. She does kind of end up being a prisoner. The cook, who does give her many warnings that she doesn't heed, eventually thinks that she's going to try to kill her. I think I'll stop it there, but there's a lot going on in this book. But yes, it could have been cut in half.
Fair enough.
And it's so sad that she has to force a marriage with someone she doesn't want to marry in order to and prove another marriage is false. And then it all goes to arbitration, of course, you know, it goes to like the legal case and everything. It's interesting to see Wilkie Collins really talking about a societal issue, though. You know, it's rather than just like a random romance or detective story or something. It's really good. I really, really liked it.